Hello. Welcome to another edition of the We're Too Lazy to Record a Podcast. We're going to make a video over Twitter. As always, joining me is my counterpart, Adriana Terrazas. Adriana, how are you today?
Apparently too lazy to make a podcast, so here we are. It's getting quite cold down here. Is it getting cold over there?
I actually turned on my light today because it just slowly, ominously started getting darker and darker. So that's...
Oh yeah, that's daylight savings. I don't get that.
So yeah, we're definitely dealing with some cold. But we're going to do a quick little, again, Liga MX Femenil highlight, looking at everything that's been going on, looking at this past Jornada, and what to look forward to for this upcoming Jornada and Liguilla as well. So Adriana, to kick things off, highlights from this past Jornada.
First of all, just noticing what teams are still clinging on to any possibility of making the Liguilla is quite exciting. I think we were all kind of rooting for Querétaro to just keep that 1-0 advantage against Monterrey. Sadly, Monterrey being Monterrey, they had to go with the tie. But I was particularly excited to see Querétaro just beating Monterrey for a huge amount of time. 1-0, and it just seemed as though, oh my God, are they really going to do this? Because I'm not sure, but I'm thinking it would have been the first victory for Querétaro against Monterrey.
Yes, ever. Can I just personally on the record go and ask Carla Rossi to fix my life the way that she's been fixing Querétaro? It's just...
We all need a Carla Rossi, like Mary Kondo to come in and just let us go of things that are not useful anymore. And
Now, controversial thing, was that a PK for Rayadas?
I think it was... It's one of those calls that I think we're all more aware of now, that because we have the repetitions, it's easier for us to think that it is. I know. I think in general, the thing with refereeing this semester, in Liga MX and all tournaments, is I think they're way more strict now. I don't know. I'm going with whatever the referee calls the first time seems to be the correct call usually. I don't know. I was looking in at UEFA. They're going to make this request against FIFA to make sure that handballs aren't necessarily always PKs. And it happened to Hector Herrera this week. He had a ball go against his chest, and then after his chest, it went to his arm. That was obviously not something that he was trying to do, and still it was a PK.
Your strategy, just kick it at their arm, regardless. You'll get the PK call. At this point, you basically just have to avoid using your hands.
For just anything. If you fall, I don't know, to keep your hands behind you or something.
Fall face first. That's all you gotta do. Avoid.
Exactly.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
I don't know. I just hope that we don't see many calls that actually really ruin an entire game because of something that, that was a handball, but it hit his head and his chest first, and somehow it ended up in his hand, and that's a PK. I don't know. It's gotten to the point where it's counterproductive, I think.
Licha Cervantes is back in the goal scoring race. A 3-0 win for Chivas versus Xolos. This is good confidence for them going into these next few games.
Yeah, definitely. Because we did see, I don't want to say we saw Chivas have a terrible streak. There was some point where, I always think that teams that come into Liguilla without knowing a defeat or just after an incredible streak, sometimes it really can mess with the player's mentality because you're just so overconfident, or you just don't think as much of your mistakes as you would if you come off maybe not the best performance, or just maybe losing a game. Because if you have those ideas really present, if you're constantly thinking about them, I think you're constantly trying to avoid those mistakes. So if you come in from a really amazing streak of not losing games, you just don't remember those little particular things you have to work on. So I don't know. I kind of have that thing because I can't imagine a team going into Liguilla without knowing defeat. I know Tigres is doing it, but it's Tigres, and they were born this way, apparently. So I don't know. I kind of appreciated the fact that Chivas had, they kind of stumbled upon a couple of weeks ago, and they weren't as powerful as they were at the beginning of the season. But I kind of appreciate that because it means you have to go back to basics, see what you were doing wrong, what was working for you. And just keep in mind that despite whatever performance you have had previously, that doesn't mean you're going to win the next games necessarily.
And of course, before I forget to mention, historic goal from Norma Palafox this weekend against Xolos. She got to 21 goals, and that's the lead goal scoring record for Chivas. So just, amazing stuff. You consider all the backlash she gets for her social media dedication and everything. This is a really great moment for her.
I agree. I think many people will kind of doubtful regarding how well she would come back to Chivas after being in that reality show and everything. And yes, she does get tons of attention because of her social media. But it just goes to show, this is going to sound amazing, but I was looking at an interview with Chicharito Hernandez this week after, he got eliminated with the Galaxy and everything. And he said something really important, that it's how players and athletes in general are constantly like breaking the mold of saying we can be athletes, but we can also be entrepreneurs. We could be podcasting. We could be doing stuff on video games and such. And just right now we were mentioning Norma Palafox, and yeah, she does stuff on social media, but she's constantly making like a brand for herself. She just invested in a coffee company with Miguel Layún and Iker Casillas. So I don't know. I mean, just we shouldn't just think about, oh yeah, the goals that she's scoring and what she does on social media. I mean, we're constantly seeing players that are starting to understand that they can make a brand out of themselves and make sure their career does go on, despite if they're playing or not. Because again, we've seen this several times. I mean, players constantly saying you have to be educated, you have to start making sure you have a future, whether it's on the field or off the field, because if it is on the field, it's not going to last forever. So I don't know. I just wanted to point that out with Norma Palafox as well, because she is kind of setting an example for other players in that sense as well. I mean, we've talked about how badly we feel about Xolos this tournament. It's just a team that had promised so much at the beginning of Liga MX Femenil, and now, I mean, they're just lacking a project entirely. They're lacking backing from the club, and it's just really sad to see a team do so poorly because of these things, not necessarily because they have a better or worse squad, just because there isn't a project there to back them up.
America with the 2-1 victory, just barely. I mean, we're seeing that good connection between Dani Espinosa, Montse Hernandez coming back after injury. Cassandra Cuevas, a huge part of that. But for me, at the end, they still feel like that weak link. If you're going to look at who's the weakest link of the top five, America for me. And a lot of it has to do with their injuries.
America, we talked about this, we even joked about it. It was just amazing how the men's side and the women's side were just plagued by injuries. It was crazy. It was something that made you start to think, what's going on with the coaching staff? Is it something really like in the facilities? Is it what's going on? It's impossible to have two teams, same club, have that many injuries. We even had Leo Cuellar be absent with the team for several days because he might have tested positive for COVID. I mean, he was in contact with someone who did. So it was just like, what else could go wrong? I mean, seriously, you could start counting players, and everyone at least had some kind of injury at some point, I'm guessing, like 70% of the squad. So just seeing them go against Toluca, which is again another team that I kind of regret not seeing them as strong as they did like the first year of Liga MX when they did pretty well. But yeah, I mean, America, it just goes to show how amazing the squad is, that despite all these absences, they still have a really, really strong squad. Not as strong as I'm guessing like the first 3 or 4 tournaments, but still pretty decent. And I'm just amazed at their goalkeepers. I mean, we would have thought that Hanna Gutierrez would have, that JD Gutierrez would be solidly all the time in the goalkeeping position. I mean, yes, she's away due to injury. But I mean, you saw Acuña and you see Macharelli, and oh my God, they're really good. I mean, you could constantly see them, like flying and trying to avoid the ball getting anywhere near the post. I mean, I'm really surprised to see how big the competition is in the goalkeeping position.
Definitely. And moving on to the final match of Jornada 14, super huge match to look forward to. Tigres versus Atlas. Like you said, Adriana, Tigres comes out of this with a 3-0 victory, undefeated in the last 14 weeks. Just amazing. But I got to give credit to Atlas because they were showing some promise. You saw what Alison Gonzalez is made of during the first couple minutes of that match. But I mean, can anybody stop Tigres at this point?
It doesn't seem likely. No, it doesn't. I mean, they're just so solid. I mean, and they haven't had tons of injuries or absentees or anything. So I don't know. I don't think anyone can stop. I mean, we do have, they face Juarez this weekend. Kind of have to say that, yeah, probably Tigres will have that another victory right there. We have Clásico Tapatío, pretty exciting. Probably just, I don't know, like a semifinal game in the regular season. And then they face Chivas. So it's up to Monterrey again. For Monterrey, they usually they're stuck in these circumstances where they actually have to prove themselves against Tigres all the time. I'm leaning more towards Monterrey getting the victory than Chivas, just because both games are home games for Tigres, and I do think Chivas might struggle a bit more than Monterrey.
I think they might end the season unbeaten at this point,
Yeah,
but
they could get a tie.
But it will make for good excitement going into that Liga, because then everybody will want to beat them. They'll look over, they'll like you're saying, they'll look over what they did well, what they didn't do well, and then just really, really have this resentment for Tigres. So I'm looking at that. Credit to Katy Martinez once again, leading goal scorer for the league. And Jackie Ovalle is back after 1 month of not scoring. So, I mean, Tigres is finding their form, but should make for an exciting Liga.
And then you look back and there's like Stephanie Mayor and you're like, okay, any of you guys can score, so just go ahead.
Looking ahead, games we should look forward to for Jornada 15.
Let's see, we have, okay, Atlas versus Pumas will probably be quite exciting because despite the fact that Atlas has already qualified, Pumas is still not mathematically there. So they're kind of obligated to get at least a point. I mean, you have to look into calendars and start getting your calculator out and stuff. But I think that might be quite exciting also because Pumas got that victory 4-0 against Necaxa. I mean, still a pretty easy victory for Pumas, but they might have a tough time against Atlas, but still pretty difficult for Pumas just because they need those points to make sure they make it to the Liguilla. America versus Querétaro, we obviously want to see Carla Rossi against Leonardo Cuellar, all that experience coming in. Querétaro, after getting a tie against Rayadas, I don't guarantee America getting that win against Querétaro. I think Querétaro is pretty pumped up right now just because of how well they've been doing. Again, they need that victory to make sure they're still in those 8 positions towards Liguilla. So I think that might be a pretty exciting game. And obviously another game that we think is probably going to be like a Liguilla match is Monterrey versus Pachuca. Pachuca, not that strong team that we've seen in previous seasons, but still they're in 8th position. So they're still with high possibilities of making it to Liguilla. But still, I mean, you want to get those points because Amy's Mazatlan is just right like behind them. So any combination of results could kick Pachuca out of those eight first slots. And I don't know, we could see Pachuca out of Liguilla if they don't have a really strong finish.
It's the week of returns. Monica Ocampo is back and she scored. So
that was amazing. I remember we didn't even know what was wrong with Monica Ocampo. I mean, we were just looking at social media and was like, why isn't she playing? And then all of a sudden we'd see like these video posts of like she was at the gym and she was saying, well, I'm coming back soon. And we were like, how soon? When soon? Having that leadership to make sure you actually do make it to the Liguilla will be so important for Pachuca.
Adriana, anything to close off this nice little lightning round video that we get to do for everybody?
I mean, Liguilla, it's looking like this at the moment, okay? This could change because, again, those last places are still quite tight. So we would have Tigres versus Pachuca, really great game. Monterrey versus Querétaro. I mean, Carla Rossi, all that experience would be just like, that would be the best test possible for Carla Rossi. Chivas versus Pumas, high rivalry game, that would just be amazing. And Atlas versus America. That's if the standings just stay that way for another jornada, which we're not quite sure about. So I don't know, let's see how it goes. Let's see what other teams get, have that guarantee of making it to the Liguilla, even if it's with a couple of weeks in advance. Mazatlan is just right behind Pachuca. They need a really strong finish. They're 6 points away, but I don't know, it could happen.
Thank you guys so much for enjoying these videos. Don't forget to, keep up with the content, follow the hashtag Liga MX FEMENG. So many great people part of that community. And like Adriana said, just a couple more weeks and then it's Liguilla.